How could Yitzchak love Eisav? That's the question. One approach is that Eisav fooled Yitzchak. He pretended to be religious. He said the right things. He acted the right way. And that's why Yitzchak loved Eisav. The Chizkuni presents the idea that Yitzchak's love for Eisav was temporary. Vayehav Yitzchak et Eisav. It's in the past tense. Rivka ohevet et Yaakov. It's in the present tense. This indicates that Yitzchak's love for Eisav wasn't permanent. It wasn't something lasting. It was something passing. I prefer to analyze Yitzchak's love for Eisav as being genuine. It wasn't coerced. It wasn't fake. If we look more closely, we can find that what Yitzchak saw in Eisav, and maybe learn a little bit something for ourselves of looking beyond the surface. There are two aspects of Yitzchak's love for Eisav. What Yitzchak loved and how Yitzchak loved Eisav. The Torah says that Yitzchak loved Eisav because Eisav was tzayid b'fiv. He provided him with food. He was impressed with Eisav being an ish sadeh. He was a man of the field. He was an outdoorsman. There was tachlis. There was a reason that Yitzchak loved Eisav. Eisav was bold. He was confident, even sometimes violent. Yitzchak appreciated these character traits as essential to survival. He had been bullied by Avimelech's people who stole his wells. Eisav would never let that happen to him. He would fight. That's the characteristic that Yitzchak loved, that confidence, that boldness. On a deeper level, the Hasidic Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, explains that being an ish sadeh, a person of the outside, was something that Yitzchak saw as a major component, an essential, critical component of one's avodas Hashem, one's service of God. Eisav was supposed to be the person out in the field who took his Judaism outside, who can show people how to live an ethical life while being outdoors, while engaging in business, engaging in the outside world. There's a way to balance it all. You take the Judaism with you wherever you go. Yaakov was the scholar in the ivory tower, Yoshev Ohalim sitting in the tent. Eisav represented the possibility of a synthesis of the spiritual personality taking that outside and inspiring the people. However, in the end, Eisav did not live up to his lofty potential. So Yitzchak loved Eisav because Eisav represented a possible, bold, synthesized Judaism that would be effective for his descendants. However, in the end, Eisav and many of us don't always live up to that lofty ideal. Yitzchak loved Eisav for another reason. That's because Eisav was his son. Yitzchak loved Eisav because that's what fathers do. That's what parents do. We love our children. In particular, Yitzchak was drawn to Eisav because of his flaws. Rabbi Yonasan Eibschitz notes that Yitzchak had a unique love and tolerance for those who might be less than perfect. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Peitet Amud Bet, states that in the future, God will turn towards Avraham and said, Banecha chatuli, the Jewish people, your children have sinned against me. Avraham will be indignant and say, if they sinned against you, well then, they should be punished, destroy them because of the holiness of your name. He'll be so upset that the people sinned and he won't defend them. The Gemara continues that there was an identical dialogue with Yaakov. God says to Jacob, your children sinned, and Jacob says, well, they sinned against you, they should be punished. Then God goes to Yitzchak and says, Banecha chatuli, your children sinned against me. And Yitzchak doesn't respond the way Avraham and Yaakov did. Yitzchak will reply, you call them my children, but you also call them your children. B'ni bechori Yisrael, my firstborn Israel. You can't destroy my children, says Jacob to God, without destroying your children, God, without destroying God's children. And Yitzchak's arguments will ultimately defend and save the Jewish nation. From here, Rabbi Yonason Eibschitz explains, we find the reason why Yitzchak loved Eisav. Yitzchak rooted for the underdog. Yitzchak rooted for Eisav because of his imperfection, in the hopes that through loving Eisav, he would help Eisav overcome his limitations. Someone once came to Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Kook, the first chief rabbi of pre-state Israel, and was upset because he had given his son a good Jewish education, and his son, while observant, when being brought up, had decided to go in a different direction and was drifting farther away from observant Judaism. No longer kept Shabbos or kosher, barely identified as a Jew. And the distraught father, came to Rav Kook and said, "What should I do?" Rav Kook responded, "Did you love your son when he was religious?" "Of course," replied the father. "Well, then," Rav Kook said, "now you have to love him even more." That is the love of Yitzchak for Eisav. That is the defense of Yitzchak for the Jewish people. And that's how we love. Yitzchak's love for Eisav did not displace Yaakov as the next link in the chain of the development of the Jewish people. It does, however, give us some perspective in missed opportunities that our potential is to synthesize, to be the Ish Sadeh that Eisav should have been, to take our Judaism and optimize and maximize it outside in the world at large. And also, Yitzchak's love for Eisav represents not only the love of parents for children, but our need to root for the underdog. And when people seem farther away from us, to love them even more. How could Yitzchak love Eisav? The real question is, how could Yitzchak not love Eisav?